how AI and emerging technologies are being used in current day wars, especially how big tech is involved and what we can do about it. This is a workshop that is a part of a series of workshops organized by Etherea. So, Etherea is a platform bringing together award-winning leaders from around the world, where we try to build an accessible, intersectional, and globally informed gamified platform, app, and also a school curricula to help youth sustainability improve their lives and tackle world issues. If you would like more information about the other workshops happening this month, please visit the link that Selena is going to be sharing with you in the chat. If you can go to the next slide. So my name is Vidana. I am Egyptian, raised in Switzerland. I have also lived in Ireland and London. So Egypt, Switzerland, Ireland, London, and now Dubai. So I would call myself a citizen of the world. I've been working in safety for a long time now. So I started my career at Meta, then moved to TikTok. After that, I was at Google, and now I am in Uber. So I would say I have a lot of knowledge about safety in big tech specifically. I also worked a lot on human exploitation. So I worked a lot on policies related to sex trafficking, labor exploitation, and all kind of exploitation you can imagine. I am also an Etherea 2025 ambassador for current affairs, very similar to Sarah. I'm gonna give you the floor so you can also present yourself.
Sure, thank you so much, Vidana. Hi everyone, my name is Sarra Hannachi. I'm from Tunisia, and I'm an independent researcher in tech, particularly in tech intersectional security. I'm also a Mozilla Foundation Fellow and a member of the Coalition for Independent Technology Research, or CITR, and a youth advisory board member with an initiative by the AU and the EU called the AU Youth Voices Lab. And same as Vidana, I'm also a proud Etherea 2025 ambassador with the current affairs, tackling a lot of issues regarding global security and global affairs.
For today, we're going to be going through four main parts. The first part and the second part are going to be presented by Sarah. So it's going to be about the applications and the implications of AI or tech in warfare. So we're going to be really going into the technicalities of what this means. After that, I'm going to be presenting about big tech role and accountability, where we're going to be going through examples of how big tech is involved and how they should be held accountable. And then after that, we're going to be going through solutions or what we can do about it. So pathways forward, where if more people join, we can go through breakout rooms. Otherwise, we can just have a general discussion all together about certain topics that we can share moving forward.
Thank you, Vidana. So yeah, I hope this kind of provokes everyone's minds at this point because we're going through a really, really tough topics here. Starting with like certain applications of the use of AI and technology in warfare and armed conflict. I know it's a topic that is very fastly developed. We're slowly trying to figure out some measures of keeping up with what's new, what's newly developed, what do we have access to, what do we know is being used and developed in military and warfare, because obviously, given the sensitivity, we don't always have that information. But we're going to go through the things that we do know, okay? So, first of all, something that is very, very basic in the use of technologies in the military is the ISTAR technologies, referring to intelligence, surveillance, target acquisition, and reconnaissance. So keep these four in mind because we're going to try to sort of affiliate them with different technologies throughout the workshop. Intelligence, surveillance, target acquisition, and reconnaissance are all both uses and purposes of the use of technology in warfare. And starting off with biometric systems. So biometric systems are used in intelligence, particularly for gathering sensitive data in mass portions. And it is then used to process AI models for reconnaissance. So you see here, even some of the technologies that are used in warfare, they are used in different elements at the same time, both intelligence and reconnaissance. And something I want to highlight is that people sometimes kind of confuse between sensitive data and personal data, so personal information. Sensitive data is everything related to biometric data, DNA data, anything that kind of consists of the whole identity of a person that should be unique. And personal data is, of course, personal information about the person's name and last name and birth dates and their ethnic background and their location, their nationality, their resident, all of the information that you also see is extracted by the military and by in security context as well. But the thing about biometric systems in warfare is that it's used for gathering information and for feeding this information into AI models that are then further used for reconnaissance. And by reconnaissance, we mean identifying certain security threats or military threats in warfare. Another thing is open source intelligence. So today it consists of a very key source of information for military intelligence. So it is both used to collect, again, and feed information too. So open source intelligence is obviously open access, which makes it more accessible to people and makes it more prone to cyber attacks as well. And it is used mostly for mass digital surveillance, cyber operations, as mentioned, and also target acquisition based on the information that the open source intelligence provides to the military for target identification. So in this case, it can both give information to a military about a certain target, or it can kind of define the target as a security threat for the military, which is why it always scares me that it's open access. Then we have attack drones or surveillance drones. So drones can be used for either or both at the same time when it comes to attacking and surveilling. So they are also lethal and can be fully autonomous when it comes to target acquisition, but they can also fly remotely. So there's a difference between autonomy and remoteness. Being remote means that they can be controlled by a human and overseen by a human, but from a distance. Meanwhile, being fully autonomous means that it is running on full AI-powered decision support systems or decision-making systems that make it define where to go to and who to engage with. And these drones are designed to navigate fields, to detect the targets, whether they're human targets or objects or buildings or infrastructures, and to engage autonomously with force. Again, they also serve for surveillance and data collection. Same as the biometric system. The only difference is that here the data is not biometric. It is imagery and computer vision data that is used for facial recognition, also known as reconnaissance, as explained earlier, hence the dual use. Then we have drone swarms, which is basically a collection of a synchronized and multi-use autonomous weapon systems integrated in drones, and that are actively engaging and operating simultaneously. But the only difference is sometimes they have different targets or different radius of their engagement in the military field. So, for example, you have 100 drones in a swarm. All of them are operating to target the same infrastructure, but in that infrastructure there are different human targets, and therefore each drone can be affiliated to another one, again based on data collected from open source intelligence and other intelligence sources by the military. Then we have unmanned ground vehicles. So UGVs, they serve mostly for, actually UGVs are now very much the old tech, because now there's a lot of more new stuff like we've mentioned with the drones and robotics. But UGVs mostly serve for like having access on the ground of the field without risking, people in the military. So engaging again with human object when dealing with limited access and movement. So this could be the case when you have a minefield, for example, and you don't want to be risking people. But also UGVs are remote. There are a few developments of some fully autonomous UGVs, which is very dangerous because you have a robotic, basically a robot, what we call a killer robot with 4 wheels, deciding who to shoot and having full access to the military field. And then we have unmanned aerial vehicles or UAVs. So they serve also for access, remote access, but this time for aerial space and not ground space. And they fly autonomously engaging with targets, and they are usually remote sometimes, again, but not fully autonomous. So we'll try to distinguish between remote and autonomous. So if they're remote, they will rely on a person, and if they are fully autonomous, they will only rely on target coordinates, and they will do the job without any human oversight. And another few mentions of weaponized technologies, because the list goes on and on, to be honest. So we have sensor-based artificial intelligence. So this could be the use of radar, acoustic technology. Electro-optical one is the one that you see well, in movies, basically, the one that helps you identify thermal energy when you see a person is moving in a certain room, etc. So this is the question that we always ask ourselves: is the data that is being fed to AI models enough to distinguish between a person and an object, or an adult and a child, a security threat, a civilian? Again, with infrared technologies, because these are all sensor-based technology does not have visual data. It only has, for example, thermal data, satellite imagery as sources, so not a full fact of seeing the actual person that you're targeting with proof. And then we have killer robots that I mentioned, which are the new fully autonomous UGVs. It's just they just try to make them more fancy by calling them killer robots, but they're actually just machines who have the ability to act with force, fully automated and fully autonomous. China is working a lot on this. And of course, other weaponized technologies, which are surveillance systems, because I know I mentioned that the open source intelligence and the drones are being used for surveillance, but there are actual separate surveillance systems used for like intercepting communication calls between people and in infecting their devices with spywares, etc. So obviously, again, I could go all night talking about weaponized technologies and how so far we've come, and that it's getting harder and harder to keep track of all of these developments with technology and warfare, which is scary, but it's good to know. It's good to always be aware of these things. And I'll pass it on now to the implications. So in terms of implications, there are mostly two types of implications, right? So there's the human one and the technical one. The human one is mostly about the dual use, so having the right technologies but in the wrong hands, having the human in lead or the military official or whatever be the wrong person of having the power over that technology and deciding when and where on what to use it. And there's the technical implications, which include bias. So this is like we're talking bias and based on the data that is collected. It could be discriminatory based on race, on ethnic belonging, on gender, on basically anything that identifies that kind of is included as a source information to identify the security threat. Both the human and the technical implications, unfortunately, we're seeing nowadays in this horrid year of wars, go hand in hand. So we see the amplification of the risks of AI and tech on civilians, on humanity, on the environment, all because one, the technical gaps, and two, the dual use by the humans in charge. Some examples of these implications obviously include the Lavender model of, which is an AI model for machine learning directing Israel's bombing spree in Gaza. So it has been used to amplify the number of targets and leading to tens of thousands of civilians being identified as suspects and assassinated and killed during the genocide in Palestine throughout the years. Not only Lavender, there are other models also used, such as the Gospel, for identifying infrastructures, hospitals, and buildings that are crucial for the survival of the Palestinians. And then there's also drone strikes. So not just the AI model itself, but the technologies that are relying on the AI models, such as the drones that are targeting certain buildings and infrastructures as threats, and hence the damage to the kindergarten in Ukraine. And we also have a systemic targeting of infrastructure, such as the internet and the power grids in Sudan. And this has been affecting a lot of the communication lines between people, between humanitarian aid and the civilians affected. there's also going on an ongoing investigation that's regarding the, again, amplified development of technologies for censorship, for surveillance, etc., especially by Chinese companies in South Asia. And of course, the use of cloud services for mass surveillance, such as the case of Palestinians, and the use of cloud services by Microsoft, hence leading us to the topic of the year, which is the role of big tech in all of this. And yeah, I'll leave it on to Vidana. You're muted.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. This was super interesting, and I actually learned a lot. So thank you. All right, so now we're moving into one of the most important parts of the workshop, which is the role of big tech and how the accountability part fits in. So up until now, I think Sarah mostly discussed about how AI and emerging technologies show up in warfare. But none of these systems exist in a vacuum. So behind each military technologies, there are companies, specifically private companies. And those companies, they build, they maintain, but most importantly, they profit from these tools. So this section is not about blaming anyone or any individuals who work at these companies. It's mostly about understanding the structures, the decisions, and the power dynamics so that we can identify where agency exists, including yours, mine, ours. So as we move through each case, I'm going to invite you to think about two very important questions. The first question would be, what responsibility does a company hold when its technology is used in war or in conflict? The second question is, what responsibility do we, as workers, as consumers, as citizens or activists, what responsibility do we hold in response? So I think we're gonna move to the first example, which is Project Nimbus. So Project Nimbus is very close to my heart because it's the reason I resigned from Google. So it's a very personal project, I would say. If you can see in the picture here, it's a picture of a sit-in that happened in the Google Cloud CEO office, where many of my ex-colleagues at the time decided to do a sit-in to basically protest Project Nimbus. So Project Nimbus is a joint contract signed in 2021 where Google and Amazon agreed to provide cloud infrastructure, AI services, and also additional technologies to the Israeli government and military. On the surface, when you think about it, it looks like any large enterprise cloud deal. But a key issue here emerges when we look at how these tools are used. So the concern raised by my ex-colleagues, by myself, by activists, by whistleblowers, by human rights organizations, by the entire world is that this cloud and AI infrastructure under Nimbus are used for four main important issues. One is data harvesting, two is facial recognition, three is object tracking, and then four is population level surveillance, specifically targeting Palestinians. So if I give you a scenario, for example, you can look at a normal Palestinian citizen walking in the street. His face is recognized by the military. They know exactly where he moves to when he goes to the supermarket, when he goes to buy something from another store, after that, when he's at home, after that, when he's at work. And based on all of this object tracking, it could be building, it could be car, it could be any object, and based on the emotional or facial recognition, and based on the mass surveillance, they can decide to either put him in prison or they can decide to kill him altogether and kill the whole family based on the data that they gather on a daily basis. And this data is basically provided to them by Google and Amazon. They couldn't do this without these two companies. So employees inside these companies have spoken out about the lack of transparency, the moral risks involved in contributing to surveillance, and targeting systems within an active conflict. And something that I had shared before while I was resigning was, if you are providing AI technology to a government that you know is creating a genocide, you are now complicit. You cannot be innocent anymore because you know exactly how this technology is used. So this idea of we are selling technology to all governments without taking any accountability while knowing how these technologies are being used is a huge topic of discussion in the world right now. And I would definitely like invite you to research more about it and look more into it. I'd like just for, like by curiosity, but how many of you knew about Project Nimbus before today? Of course, Sarah. Selena, did you know, or Amarashi? No response. No, no. Oh, okay. Interesting. So yeah, so this is the issue here. I think like news about Project Nimbus are is being really quieted down or muted and dismissed, and this is a huge issue. I think that we can discuss later in the breakout rooms about awareness and education and how projects like this don't come to light if you don't research deeply about them. So if you can go to the next slide, if Nimbus is about cloud and data, I think that this example, the next example, shows how AI has been directly embedded into military targeting. So Project Nimbus was the second project by Google that was used for military and warfare. The first project was actually called Project Maven. Project Maven was launched in 2017, and it involved a partnership between the US Department of Defense and Google. And the goal was to use AI to analyze drone footage, identifying objects, vehicles, and potentially humans to improve target identification. This was the main goal, but of course, we all know that this is just the goal that is published or that we know about. What makes Maven particularly significant, not only the technology itself, but the reaction inside of Google, is how it created this huge revolt where thousands of employees protested, some even resigned. A public petition started demanding Google to exit the contract. And this is how exactly the ethical AI principles was built. So this case was very important because it shows that bottom-up pressure sometimes works. Not every time, but sometimes it works. Employees do have a leverage in shaping the corporate policy. And then also AI in warfare is not hypothetical. It's operational, it's deployed, it's evolving. So it's very important for us to one, be up to date on what projects the company is involved in to understand what it means operationally speaking, not just theoretically speaking. And then also putting pressure to build policies and build AI ethics. So at least even if the project is not going to be canceled, know exactly how we should be dealing in situations like this. Um, Also, I think a point that's important to mention is how projects like these make private companies less independent because now they become a part of the government, right? Because if a project like Project Maven is a contract or a deal between the Department of Defense and Google, it means that Google is now part of the government and part of the military defense of a whole government, which makes it much less independent in its leadership and its operations. So it's now not an independent company that makes its own choices, but it follows a government and it follows the leadership of a whole government, which is very dangerous in terms even of democratic principles. Um, so we've looked at the US and global tech involvement. I think now we can examine AI systems that are more actively shaping military targeting today. So Sarah mentioned it in her presentation. So the Gospel or Hasbora is an AI targeting system used by the Israeli Air Force. The companies that are connected to it until now that we know of include Microsoft, Palantir, Oracle, and the Israeli Air Force. Um, as she mentioned, the system automatically recommends targets, basically, essentially acting as a machine-generated kill list, which human analysts then approve or pass on, so they can decide who gets to die and who gets to live. Very scary, almost like Game of Thrones or what was the Korean series called? Where they're all killing each other. So multiple intelligence sources they have described this system as transforming the IDF into a mass assassination factory. This is how dangerous this system has become. because it prioritizes the quantity of the targets over the civilian protection, which means that for them, precision is more important than morals. So even if they find that, I don't know, this building has 20,000 people, but two are terrorists, they might bomb the whole building, not really caring about what does it mean in terms of civilian protection. So it's literally just robotic mass assassination. What this highlights, I think, is a new frontier in warfare. So one is this algorithmic decision making, which we are seeing and is becoming a trend. As Sarah has mentioned, this like killer robot kind of system, the high velocity targeting. Before, when a human would be responsible of killing, they could have the moral decision of stopping or not deciding not to kill a person, or their moral decision might come in and they would kill less people. Also, in terms of technology, they had less capability of killing so many people. The quantity was much less than what we are seeing now. So now what we are seeing now is both high velocity and algorithmic like killing. So it's literally just mass assassination. Much less reduced human oversight. So now we still have a bit of control over AI, but what happens when we stop having control altogether? What would be AI's decision? Who would they decide to kill? Who would they not? We don't know that. I think we're going to discover this moving forward in the upcoming years. Also, amplified scale of violence. That the amount of and the number and the volume that we are seeing is unseen and unheard of. I think like an important just question to ask ourselves is how does accountability work when a system recommends a strike? Who's responsible? Is it the engineer? Is it the company? Is it the military? Is it the algorithm? Now that we have a bit of oversight, is it humans? Maybe later, is it just AI? Like, it's very important to just have these discussions and have these open discussions of who is accountable and where does accountability fit in examples like this. Um, Now let's look at a slightly different example where private sector investment choices directly supports military technology. So Uber, where I work now, decided literally the week that I joined to invest millions in Flytrex, an Israeli drone delivery company. On the surface, when you think about it, it's framed as an innovation for food delivery, right? But Flytrex also contributes to the Israeli drone technology ecosystem, which is highly linked to the surveillance and military use. So this investment has actually sparked a huge global boycott campaign, especially among pro-Palestinian activists who argue that Uber is basically supporting or materially supporting a state engaged in genocide, which has been happening in the past 2 years. So I think this example is important because it looks innocent on the outside. It's just a food delivery drone. But when you think about it, it shows complicity isn't through only like building weapons. It can be through encouraging and increasing the main or general drone technology ecosystem in a genocidal country. And also through funding, through partnering, or enabling dual use tech ecosystems. So sometimes it might not be through weapons or drones or stuff, but it just partnering or funding certain companies can increase warfare. And this complicity often goes unnoticed because the narrative, of course, is innovation, logistics, or efficiency. Uber actually is not the only consumer-facing company implicated. I think we can go to the next slide. Let's look at Spotify. Um, in case, by the way, you want to boycott Spotify, and Rami is a great is a great alternative. But Spotify CEO Daniel, I don't know how we pronounce it, Daniel Ek. He has invested heavily in Helsing. Helsing is a German company building AI-powered defense technology that includes autonomous combat systems. So it works closely with the German military. So this Helsing company basically provides military weapons to the German military, to the Ukrainian military, and to the Israeli military. So their tools analyze battlefield sensor data They support real-time targeting decisions, and they even include military drone, which is called the HX2. This resulted in a huge boycott where musicians started pulling their music from Spotify in protest. Um, the accountability question becomes, does the investment count as participation in warfare? What responsibility does the CEO hold when they privately invest in defense AI? And also, what responsibility do we have as consumers when we support their platforms? When we're just listening innocently to music on Spotify, are we participating in the killing of Palestinians because they are investing in housing? Um, Finally, the last examples that I'd like to go through goes beyond warfare technology itself to the supply chains that make modern computing and AI possible. So, the Democratic Republic of Congo holds some of the world's largest reserves of cobalt and coltan. They have 1,100 precious minerals specifically, but the ones that are most important to use in modern electronics are called cobalt and coltan. These are used for, so basically every laptop, every smartphone, every data center processing AI models, they depend on these materials. They cannot exist without these materials. So I would say that the key players associated with these supply chains include Apple, Samsung, Dell, Google, Microsoft, Tesla, and the party that makes it possible is the armed group called M23 that is creating the current genocide. So the demand for these minerals are driven by tech innovation, and especially the AI's growing resource needs. And it's deeply tied and known for forced labor, child labor, displacement, mass violence. So in order for these minerals to be extracted, this M23 armed group are involved in a lot of exploitation, including forced labor, child labor. And a lot of people have been killed, a lot of people have been abused, a lot of people have been exploited just for us to get our phones, our laptops, and for the data centers and AI centers to exist. And I think this reminds us that the ethics of AI doesn't begin in the algorithm. It's actually much deeper. It begins in the mining and the workers and the supply chain and the community that's impacted. So like it begins right before, much before the algorithm part. Just even the existence of these technologies, unfortunately, reminds us that, people are being exploited for us to get these technologies. And again, it's the same question. So when we think about accountability in this context, where does it start? Is it at the company level? Is it at the consumer level? Is it international law? Is it governments? Is it private companies? So just across these examples, Nimbus, Maven, the Gospel, Uber, Spotify, what's happening in Congo, I think that we're seeing a pattern. One is that big tech is deeply embedded in modern warfare. Two is that accountability mechanisms are weak because we don't know who to hold accountable, how to hold them accountable, and in which ways we should be holding them accountable. There is no alignment on this part. And then three is that workers or consumers or communities, they unfortunately often become the front line of resistance. And there are solutions and pathways forward. So I think in the next section, we're going to shift the analysis from, just theoretical to action. What can we do about it? So maybe we can move to the next section.
Thank you so much, Vidana. I'm really glad that you mentioned the supply chain role because I think that's sometimes unfortunately disregarded in what you just mentioned about not being aligned on big tech accountability in modern warfare. So thank you for mentioning the supply chain, and hopefully from that we can move on to some actionable pathways forward.
I
Something
think
that
we
we
can have
want
a
to,
general discussion, right? Because
yes,
yeah, breakout rooms is not going to work out today, so we
yeah.
can just yeah.
I think for sure, like given we're we're from like different backgrounds, I'm sure the more the merrier. We would learn a lot from each other when we're discussing what kind of measures we can take, what kind of actions or reactions we can have. So we thought to categorize it to four key elements, and but we're open to make the discussion like even further. So what can we do to raise awareness about these not like the role of technology in modern warfare, the role of big tech companies and the SMEs that are taking part in the supply chain of the big tech companies as well, and educating people about the dangers of AI and tech in warfare and genocide. And then, of course, mentions of boycotting and ethical consumerism, the role of labor union in mass action, what can we do to influence policy and regulations or to make it ourselves. So these are the different elements, but we're open to yeah. So open mic. I'm gonna give like first the floor to anyone besides me and Vidana, but if nobody, then we can start off. Thank you for sharing all of those takeaways. We also want to share something with you, which is a couple of resources that we've built in order to we've included in the presentation in order to kind of encourage you, even like I said, that you don't work particularly on this intersection, we want to encourage you to learn more about it. So there's this platform called Surveillance Watch that you can go through. The link is here. I don't know, I can copy paste it later on, or maybe Vidana can copy paste it in the chat because I don't have access right now. So basically, this platform allows you to navigate the whole globe through the map and see which countries are being targeted by which technologies developed by which tech companies, powered by which governments. So it's a very, it's a loop of the structure that is being used for surveilling, and not just surveilling, any technologies that are being used for cyber attacks, military tech facilitated operations. And it literally wakes your mind up about so many things that we were not aware of before. Another platform or extension or add-on I want to share is the wall. So the wall, also the link, I hope Vidana can share in the chat, is basically an extension that allows people to detect and block Israeli websites. And well, websites are tech, so this allows you to boycott from your laptop before you even, go through the apps on your phone and your devices. So this is literally normal navigation of internet. And it's accurate, it's fast, it's free, it's offline, and it's secure. I really advise you. It's been very helpful for me. It like also made me realize how much Israelis everywhere in the tech industry. And lastly, I want to share with you something that I'm working on, and I'm going to be launching at the end of November 2025, which is a podcast series, part of my Mozilla Fellowship, that will be tackling AI and tech warfare and in border security and in conflict. And it's going to be called Security Unwired. I will be your host at this podcast. If it interests you, I'm going to be talking about a lot of intersections, about a lot of pathways forward, like I mentioned, but also raising awareness to the broader public about how AI and tech is being used in warfare and in border control and governance, etc. So I'll be sharing also my contact information so that you can tune in and stay in touch once the podcast is launched. So thank you very much. That's my LinkedIn, my website. That's Vidana's email also, and LinkedIn. And we're going to open the floor for a few minutes if you have any questions, or Vidana, if you want to add something before we go to the questions.
Nothing to add. I'm very happy we got to share some of this info with you guys. If you ever want to reach out or have any other questions, you have our contacts now, so please feel free to contact us anytime.